Hey guys, so right now I have a lot of music that I need to memorize, so I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video about what kind of things I do. Now it's really easy to just play your piece over and over and over again and really just hope for the best, but it is actually much better if you systematically address as many ways to memorize as you possibly can. Tip 1, make a playlist of all the pieces you need to memorize and try to listen to it as often as you can when you're doing chores, when you're on break at work. Personally, I like to listen to mine when I'm commuting on the bus. And if you can, try to do more active listening than passive. What I mean by active is really pay attention to what you're listening to. Try to think ahead of what section comes next. Maybe even think about what your fingerings are or your bowings, and really pay attention to the tricky parts where you know that you might have some intonation errors. Step 2 is be able to sing your piece from memory. Now, I know many of you are instrumentalists and may be self-conscious about your singing voice, but how well you sing isn't really the point. When you're singing your repertoire, there are two things that it helps with. First is intonation. The other thing is you're not relying on your muscle memory from your instrument in order to know what happens next. So if, let's say, you make a mistake when you're singing or you're not sure what comes next, you know that it's not because of some muscle memory error. You know that it is your memory that you need to work on, not your muscle memory. So tip 3 is something that one of my previous teachers has gotten me to do, but I haven't actually met anyone else who does it, where basically you have a rainbow throw up onto your music. So here, I first photocopy my music because there's no way I'd read and play this at the same time. And then I organized my colored pencils. So I first organized them in the order of Roy G. Biv, and then I made sure that all the different shades of green are together, the different shades of blue are together. Basically make sure that I have as many of the same shade of each color as possible. I first go through my music and find all the parts that are either the exact same or similar. Any part that is exact same, I would color it the same color, exact same color. Any parts that are similar, so maybe a theme comes back, but it has modulated or transposed, or maybe there's a different, maybe if you're playing double stops, like in the Romance here, there's a different bass line that you're playing, various things like that. I colored the first phrase here green, and then later on the page, it comes back, but with a different bass line that I have to play. So I colored it a different shade of green, a bit of a lighter shade here. And then when I go to the second page, it comes back again, but much higher, the same theme. So what this does is when you're playing your piece, the colors kind of help you to remember which section comes next. I find that once I know a piece well and it's colors that I assigned it, I kind of think, okay, here's the green section, and then the blue section, and then the red section, or whatever colors it is, and I find that actually helps a lot. So tip 4, when you're ready to pick up your instrument and start actually memorizing, I don't play through my whole piece and hope that I memorize it. I instead go by bar, or small chunk by small chunk. So first, memorize the first bar. Then play through the second bar, just the second bar, and memorize that. Then I would go back, play through the first bar and the second bar together from memory. And then I'll try to memorize the third bar. then I'll go back to the first bar and play the first 3 bars from memory. So you just keep going like that, bar by bar, or small section by small, really small section. And I find it really helps to build up both that muscle memory and cognitive memory. It is much easier to memorize smaller parts than it is for larger parts. Tip 5, when you feel that you are ready to practice whole passages, so not just bars, but we're getting a bit larger here, try to pinpoint the passages that are similar but a little bit different and practice those one after another first. Now, the reason why I say that is often people make memory mistakes in those passages because they start to play one and then sometimes they make the mistake and start playing the other, and that's where you get into a lot of trouble. So when you really zero in on those passages that are similar, it is easier to memorize their slight differences. Okay, so tip 6. Let's say you are practicing all the way through and you keep making memory mistakes. In this case, don't keep going. In a concert situation, yeah, you have to keep going. But when you're practicing, as soon as you realize that you have made a memory mistake, go back. Look at your music at that particular spot and figure out what you did wrong and zero in on that bar. Play it a few times from reading off the music, then maybe that particular bar a few times from memory, and be like, okay, I have to really think about shifting here or whatever the fingering is or the bowing in order to not make that mistake again, and then move on. The reason for this is if you just keep playing, you're actually going to reinforce the mistake instead of fixing it. Tip 7 is somewhat related to tip 6. Let's say you play a passage exactly as it's written, but when you're doing it from memory, you accidentally use an alternate fingering. This has actually happened to me before. In this scenario, you have to then look back on your music and you have to decide, is this mistake an actual mistake that you need to fix? Or is this your body trying to tell you that there's actually an alternate and better fingering for you to do? Now, your decision really all depends on the particular passage that you are looking at. You really just have to take it by a case-by-case basis. Tip 8. Now, this will slightly sound like it goes against one of my previous tips, but it's not. So try to play through all the pieces that you have to memorize at least once every day. So for me, I have 4 pieces that I need to prepare, 3 of which I need to memorize, and they are very long. So in a normal practice session, I usually focus on 2 pieces to really do sort of a full practice and really hone in on certain trouble spots that I may have. And then the other 2 pieces, I would then just play through, try to play it from memory. If I make a memory mistake, then I start to kind of play through while looking at my music, just as long as I play them once. And then the next day when I practice, I alternate. So these 2 pieces I really focus on practicing, and these other 2 I then just play through. Now what this does is that it makes sure that all my pieces stay within my muscle memory. If I only play 2 of them every second day, then it will kind of take away from the other 2. You know what I mean? So when I at least play through my pieces, it will retain that muscle memory. My last tip is that your metronome is your friend. So when I start to feel really comfortable with the pieces that I have memorized, I first actually crank up my metronome to be a little bit faster than what I actually plan to play it, and to try to play from memory that way. Now what this does is it forces me to have to think ahead faster. So then when I crank my metronome back down to the actual speed that I need to play my piece, I am already thinking ahead much more quickly than I would be if I only practice at the slower tempo. Now this you have to be really careful about, because you don't want to get into the habit of practicing way too fast, because then you run the risk of accidentally rushing, and that is not what you want. That is very bad. In fact, if you have a very bad tendency to rush, I suggest maybe not doing this at all. Keep your metronome at the normal speed that you're going at. So those were all my tips to help with memorizing music. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. I'll also have a link for you to click for my last talking video, as well as all the information about Violin Tutor Pro in the description. And if you like this video, do what every other YouTuber asks you to do and click that thing. See ya!